I talk about a lot of stupid things. You already know that. A lot of very meaningless drama, shenanigans that really have no impact in the real world and how things work in furry at conventions, the actual practice of the hobby. However, this time we're talking about something so stupid that actually does affect how potentially things will work in the real world. But that's not what furries have decided. That's something that the House of Representatives, or at least one member, put forward for a bill known as the FURRIES Act. A bill that was just recently proposed, which would prohibit the accommodation or allowance of any distracting or unhealthy role-playing behavior commonly associated with the so-called furry subculture inside Texas public schools. So what's going on with that? Why are furries under fire once again from the House of Representatives in the state of Texas? Specifically, this man with a hairline that I have no clue what the fuck is going on with, but it looks like he used a randomization feature in a character creation screen. Alright, let's talk about the hot new thing that everyone on Twitter is talking about, and also the stupidest thing that I have ever read this year so far, known as the FURRIES Act. The acronym standing for Forbidding Unlawful Representation of Role-Playing in Educational Spaces. So supposedly, furry role-playing behavior has gotten so out of hand in Texas public schools. I didn't even know that was a thing. I didn't know furries had infiltrated schools. In fact, I thought the last time we had heard about furries with regards to schools in general was the whole litterbox hoax back in 2021. Yeah, it's been nearly 4 years now, and I guess it's still happening. And it's not an I guess, that whole litter box hoax was used as potentially one of the reasons for this whole FURRIES Act being a thing. Wow, this country is fucked. This country is, ooh, wow, I hate being here. A new bill was proposed in the state of Texas by one of the House of Representatives known as Stan Gerds. I don't know if I'm saying his name right, and I really don't care to correct myself on that. But a bill was proposed that pretty much targeted the furry subculture in the form of, I guess, furry roleplay or disruptive behavior happening in classes. And so a new act or bill or law or something is going to maybe be put in place, or at least is up for discussion, debate, and may or may not eventually be passed, that disallows any sort of unhealthy roleplay behavior, with the specific target being the furry subculture. So let's talk about it. There's a lot to unpack with this, and a lot that I really wish I didn't have to read, but here we are. I saw furries left and right dunking on this post, just quote retweeting it, saying that it's dumb, and pretty much saying that the issue that they are highlighting is entirely non-existent. But hey, you know, if you make up a problem and believe that it's real enough, you'll get other people to believe it too. And then eventually, you can get whatever's going on now, where this is a House bill that will be up for, I guess, discussion, debate, may or may not be passed. I don't really know how this works. All I know is that there is a House bill up for proposal known as the FURRIES Act in the year 2025, and I am flabbergasted at just how stupid all of this is. Like, it all started from the litter box hoax, or at least whatever started the litter box in public schools hoax, which if you don't know that whole thing, there was a rumor that had spread around back in, I believe, 2021, where someone reported that there were litter boxes being set out in public bathrooms for the kids who identified as cats or furries or animals to use instead of the urinals or toilets.
Yesterday I heard that at least one of our schools in our town has in one of the unisex bathrooms, a litter box for the kids that identify as cats.
And this ended up being a huge rumor. It was debunked time and time again, every single time it came up, whenever there was supposedly evidence of this happening, or someone saying, oh yeah, this happens in this school, where that person would come back and say, actually, that's misinformation, I lied.
The rumor is that our schools have litter boxes in the restrooms to accommodate individuals who are self-identifying as animals. This is simply and emphatically not true.
Or you just have blanket generalizations that furry students are using litter boxes in school bathrooms, and it's just, okay, yeah, we're just believing everything we see now. But either way, the letter or document reads as such. State Representative Stan Gerds today announced the filing of House Bill 4814, the FURRIES Act, Forbidden Unlawful Representation of Role-Playing in Education, which would prohibit the accommodation or allowance of any distracting or unhealthy role-playing behavior commonly associated with the so-called furry subculture inside Texas public schools. So pretty much from what I understand with this bill, it's to prohibit any sort of furry-related roleplay. And that could go for pretty much anything from furry roleplay, quite literally, which I don't think kids are role-playing as furries in schools, if I'm being honest. In fact, I feel like most kids in public schools don't know what furries are, unless they've had an iPad thrust in their face at the age of 2. So it could go as far as to preventing any sort of actual furry role-playing, which I'd be concerned if that actually was happening, and that's more of a matter for, the teachers and superintendent and principal and parents to address and discuss and deal with. But from what I read with this, it could apply to something as simply as kids getting together at recess to pretend to play dinosaurs. You know how you'd have like a group of kids in like very, very young ages in elementary school. They get together at recess, they'd see their favorite TV show, whether it's like animal characters or not, and pretend to play as those characters because they really, really love those characters. For me in school, I always loved pretending to be like Dragon Ball characters. I was like, oh, I love Gohan, he's so cool, and then I do the Kamehameha, and then it was so fun to play with friends. Just pretend that we're Dragon Ball Super Saiyan characters. I know at recess, sometimes you have kids pretending to be lions from The Lion King, or warrior cats from the Warrior Cats franchise. And at the end of the day, it was just playing pretend. It was not actually wanting to be an animal. It was kids who really loved these stories, these fascinating ideas that they wanted to pretend to be that, but not actually be that. The fact that children have a better comprehension of the difference between imagination and play pretend versus real actual stuff than actual adults is very concerning in this case. What are you gonna do next? What happens with monkey bars? What, kids can't use monkey bars because they're pretending to be monkeys in this case? Like, what? That's the problem with this, is just you don't know what it's actually going to do or affect, but you can only really interpret it as such. You don't know if it's literally meaning for, no furries in school, which, to some extent I'd agree, it's a hobby for the side, but also, like, what do you determine is furry or not in this case? Is it just the fact that it's non-human, anthropomorphic, animal-like? Is it kids who pretend to play Lion King at recess being like, don't do that? Where's the cutoff? Are the group of boy kids who love dinosaurs allowed to pretend to be a triceratops or velociraptor, or is that a big no-no? See what I mean with how stupid this whole thing is? It's just like, kids are just doing what kids do. They don't know about furries. They don't care about furries. They just want to play recess with their friends, have a good time in class, and then go home to watch SpongeBob. Actually, no, I wouldn't recommend watching SpongeBob in this day and age.
Just sit back, relax, and let my gentle mammalian hands melt away that tension.
The furry movement involves individuals adopting anthropomorphic animal identities, often dressing in elaborate costumes and engaging in role-playing activities. See, you're so close. You're so fucking close to the actual definition of furry, and it's just, I know it's been 10 years. It's taken a while to get it. You'll get there soon. I believe in you. I mean, I guess it depends on how you interpret this whole thing, but from where it's coming from to begin with, from Stan Gertz, who's very openly conservative, and this is Texas too, you can imagine this might have some charged nature to it to begin with. And the fact that Stan referred to this behavior in schools being radical trends. Did they see that one furry episode of CSI like years back, and they've just clung to that as the only real definition of furries? Like, is that it? Tell me you don't know what a furry is while telling me you know what a furry is. Across the country, concerns have been raised that some schools have even provided litter boxes for students identifying as animals. Again, we've been over this for 4 years now. Again, they're saying concerns because there's no actual evidence of this happening. You'd rather cling to this idea of it being a vague concern rather than it is or isn't happening. Gertz filed this legislation in response to neighborhood concerns about a furry-related incident in Smithville ISD that was confirmed by the superintendent. Well, what's the furry-related incident? I didn't hear about it on the news or hear it talked about at all. Usually whenever something related to furries comes up, I usually hear about it, and most people tell me about it, or it just circulates very heavily because I'm very heavily involved with the furry subculture. But in all the times where I've heard of these things happening, there's never any real news article about it. And so I wondered about this Smithville ISD thing, and I did a little bit of checking, found this article from the LGBTQ Nation covering this whole FURRIES Act thing happening. In a press release about the legislation, Gerds' office claimed that a furry-related incident occurred within the Smithville Independent School District, a small district outside of Austin that serves only 1,885 students, representing 0.03% of the state's 5.1 million public school students. He didn't elaborate about the incident, nor have any known news reports covered the alleged incident. Which means at the end of the day, this whole incident is alleged. It doesn't mean that it happened or that it did not happen. But they're saying that this bill was filed in response to this event happening? I'm curious about that event. If anyone has any info on that, please let me know. Representative Gerds says his legislation ensures this radical and sometimes prurient behavior is never entertained or tolerated in Texas classrooms. What do you mean radical behavior? See, that's what I mean, you know, with this whole thing of them saying that people pretend that they're animals or think they're animals with identities and whatnot. It's just, how do you not get it right? Like, it's not that hard. It really isn't that deep. If there is disruptive problems in schools, it's just disruptive problems in schools, not that furries are the problem. I can't believe we have to do this. Me neither. You're the one that filed this, my dude. But we cannot allow these types of role-playing distractions to affect our students who are trying to learn or our teachers and administrators who are trying to teach, said Representative Gerds. We just have to keep this nonsense out of our schools, period. The bill includes practical and obvious exceptions for school mascots, theatrical performances, and themed dress days. However, it makes clear that classroom disruptions stemming from furry role-playing or the identification as non-human entities will not be tolerated. Okay, kids, you're just not allowed to pretend that you are an animal at all. That is a big no-no. Now, granted, they say in the classroom, I don't know what that's like at recess, you know, when you all get together and you just want to pretend to play the Lion King or Warrior Cats or dinosaurs or something. I don't even think, like, teachers are allowing kids to come into class with, like, you know, cat ears or tails or anything, even if they are furry. And here's the thing, too, you're forgetting. I highly doubt a lot of kids are telling people about them being a furry, because you keep forgetting kids in school are assholes to one another. They are so mean beyond belief. If anyone learns of someone else being a furry, it's just like, what do you think would happen if some kid who happened to be a furry said that they were a furry to their classmates? They would not hear the end of it. It would be awful. So yeah, no shit, kids aren't telling their classmates they're a furry, because classmates and school students are awful to one another. I don't think furries are a problem in school at all. In fact, I don't think furries have any sort of semblance of a presence in school, period. Like, at all. It's because it's a hobby thing. It's something you do on the side. And most of the time when you're in school, you don't bring your hobbies into school when it's school class time, especially, you know, in like elementary school. Like back when I was a kid, I was obsessed with Sonic and Yu-Gi-Oh! I loved those so much. I wanted to read the Sonic books in the library, and the teacher said no because they knew that I was obsessed with it and I wouldn't stop going on about it, and it would distract me from doing my actual schoolwork. I just didn't. It's just one of those things where you separate the hobby or whatever it is from actual, okay, class and work time, but that's more of on the teachers and the principals and further from there to decide that. But either way, we're not done with this letter. There's still more to it, and there's also a follow-up tweet that I want to go over, because it's wild, man. The fact that we're here this shit's crazy. Representative Gerds acknowledged that the bill is likely to draw opposition from the furry community, but made clear that his office will not entertain theatrics during the legislative process. I fully expect the subculture to show up in full furry vengeance at the committee hearing. Full furry vengeance. Dude, this can't be real. This is an actual document. Oh, from the Texas House of Representatives, man. I fully expect the subculture to show up in full furry vengeance at the committee hearing, said Gerds. But just to be clear, they won't be getting any litter boxes in the Texas Capitol. They'll have to use the regular restrooms like the humans they are. Wonderful, so you still think that we think we're animals. It's been like 10 years now, but you'll get there eventually. Which, like, I just want to say this for the record. I know this has been implied for years now. Kids acting like animals at recess, you know, pretending to play dinosaur, pretending to play warrior cats or Lion King, are not the same thing as being a furry, which again, furries do not identify as animals. I love how there's this very heavy usage of the word identity or identifying or identities. Furry is less of an identity and more of a hobby. It's like a sub-community interest. They even mention it's a subculture. It's something you participate in. You don't role play as a furry. You just enjoy the hobby and that's it. Which again goes to show that they think that this whole furry thing or pretending to be an animal coincides with the whole LGBT thing, which furry and LGBT are not the same thing. It's so stupid. This thing is so stupid, but it's so funny to see that there is an actual document written for this thing to clarify this. What's great about this post too is it actually got community noted and corrected. Furries, or the furry fandom, are fans of anthropomorphic animal characters, and it follows by linking a Wikipedia article about furries. Sensationalist claims about furries literally behaving as animals and receiving accommodations, such as litter boxes, have been repeatedly debunked as hoaxes since at least 2021. And it lists a bunch of articles that defend and confirm that litter boxes are not being used in public schools. The first one comes from Router's Fact Check, literally saying, no evidence that US school children are self-identifying as animals and disrupting classes. You have the second article that talks about how furries got swept up in anti-trans litter box rumors. The third article from PolitiFact saying debunking rebuttals didn't stop claim about litter boxes in schools from spreading before midterms. Online mentions of the false narrative that schools are providing litter boxes for students who identify as cats or furries intensified in the months before the 2022 midterm election, an analysis shows. Despite a complete lack of evidence and rebuttals from schools, conservative political candidates, pundits, and elected officials continue to repeat the unsubstantiated claim. The falsehood reflects a misunderstanding of gender identity and the furry community that dehumanizes LGBTQ people, experts told us. And then for those that have absolutely no clue what I'm talking about with the litter box in schools hoax, the Wikipedia article about it pretty much highlights it as best as he can. Which is actually funny about this, I don't usually use Wikipedia for like resources. I use it to look at the resources that they cite or link and then use that for like my own research and whatnot. But it's really funny for like the first paragraph here, with all like the claims and discussions, like some of these statements have multiple citations. And this is weird for me because I've only seen like maybe one, sometimes two like citations for like a quote or a claim or some statement on Wikipedia. Some of these have like 3 or 4. Starting in 2021, a false rumor alleged that certain North American schools were providing litter boxes in bathrooms for students who identify as cats or who participate in the furry, otherkin, alterhuman, or Therian subcultures. Various American conservative and right-wing politicians and media personalities promoted the hoax in response to several school districts enacting protections for transgender students. Many news outlets, fact-checking websites, and academic researchers have debunked such claims, and officials from every school named by those promoting the hoax have verified that the accusations are false. The claims have been described as internet trolling, fear-mongering, and anti-transgender rhetoric. So that's the whole thing with the litter box hoax, because this is where it all started to begin with. And believe it or not, the letter or document that Stan ended up posting along with his tweet highlights that this may or may not have been one of the proponents to this bill being pushed to begin with. Now, of course, a lot of people had things to say about it. I mean, you can tell from the over 600 reposts, which I'm sure those aren't regular reposts, those are quote retweets, the 100 or so likes, and the hidden replies. So yeah, pretty much every furry and their mother has been dunking on this left and right. Even non-furries have come in to say like, hey, what the fuck is going on? This is so stupid. Because again, this is stupid. This is stupid use of actual time, of actual power, to make a difference and change, I guess, the state of Texas for the better. And supposedly, this is one of the biggest issues they are dealing with regards to education in schools. And I actually ended up recording this video a little bit ago, but that was before I learned there was a second post. Our man Stan had made another post about the FURRIES Act and where the whole proposition of the bill is going. They made a post saying, the FURRIES Act to ban furry behavior in our schools now has the support of Governor Greg Abbott and Speaker Dustin Burrows, don't know who that is, don't care, who recognize the importance of keeping distractions out of our classrooms. Speaker Burrows has reassigned our legislation as House Bill 54, a low bill number that signals its priority status in the Texas House. So this FURRIES Act is considered a priority status bill that needs to be addressed sooner rather than later. I'm sorry, what about the issue of school shootings in our country? Let alone the biggest school shooting in history happening in your state? What about that? So they have made this non-issue, this imaginary problem, a higher priority for discussion or for it to be passed or voted on, however this works. Yeah, Texas probably isn't doing too hot. I'm so sorry for any of y'all who live there. I'm grateful that our leadership is taking this issue seriously and ensuring that Texas schools remain a place of learning, not role-playing. I've appreciated the conversations I've had with my own Smithville ISD superintendent on this issue. Oh, okay, so that whole furry-related incident that happened in Smithville ISD was Stan Gerge's own superintendent on it. Okay. Our educators should be focused on teaching, not managing classroom disruption from kids pretending to be animals. This is common sense. Let's get it passed. And then attached is an image of FURRIES Act is now priority legislation House Bill 54. Keeping classrooms focused, not distracted. Protecting Texas schools from disruptive role-playing. What about just protecting schools in general? The problems with school shootings being a thing in this country? The best part about this post is not the post itself, but what Stan actually quote retweeted from this post, showing a picture of some furry or fursuiter who was not happy with the bill that was proposed. It says Sycamore Somnio Wicklow, and the picture of them in a fursuit with the caption saying, if these are the kind of folks unhappy with my bill to get this inappropriate behavior out of our schools, we're doing something right. Gotta love how we live in the time where we just have political figureheads just publicly dunking on private citizens who are enjoying their hobby. And also, I am so sorry I have to even play this card. I don't even know if I'm in the right for doing this. I feel like I don't even have a say in this just based on these looks at this. But Stan, you are the last person that should be judging how someone looks or what someone is wearing when you've got whatever the fuck is going on with that headpiece of yours. What is going on there? Also, very interesting how there's one reply on this post from someone known as Briscoe Kane saying they're making it easy to know who they are. Which I have to ask, what do you mean by that? So as of right now, or at least the time of me recording this, the bill or act hasn't been up for discussion. It's only just been pushed further up as being something to vote on or whatever the process is behind this. But right now, it's all up in the air as to if it will happen or not. But regardless, all it really does is threaten children's abilities to pretend or imagine or even empathize. And what I really liked was a quote retweet from Little Alpha Pup that I kind of want to end this video off on, that kind of gives a bit of perspective as to how the actual bill is more of a problem than the problem with furries in schools. And it has to do with kids being allowed to play pretend or imagine that there's someone they're not, whether it's human or non-human, obviously within reason, of course, but the bottom line is it helps with empathizing and putting yourself in the place of others and understanding a bit of perspective. And I really like their quote retweet, or at least follow of tweets on this, so I'm going to end the video off on what they had to say. Which also go and check out Little Alpha Pup, they're absolute sweetheart, love them to death. I hate commenting on politics, and I really shouldn't do it while on painkillers, but you guys can see how BS this bill is and how it's making a mockery of legislation and the actual problems plaguing American schools, right? Kids role-playing is essential to empathetic development. The sin of empathy. Childhood role-playing is an essential part of developing critical thinking and the ability to empathize with perspectives outside oneself. In pursuit of normalcy, conservative politicians are seeking to destroy any form of empathetic developmental opportunity. If you aren't capable of empathizing with outside perspectives, you are only capable of attempting to extinguish any form of thought outside your rigid line of thinking. This is innately dangerous to productive civilization because it promotes one-minded thinking. Civilization needs many different forms and perspectives of thought to function efficiently and effectively. Denying imagination in kids leads to denying humanity in adults. Adults lacking neuroplasticity are just as, if not more, dysfunctional as proponents of conservative beliefs claim furries, trans people, progressive ideologies, etc. to be, when in reality, our ability to see perspectives outside our own make us functional members of society. At the end of the day, I don't know what this bill is going to achieve, what will actually change, or if in reality it is going to completely stop any sort of child imagination of being anything that isn't human. Because at the end of the day, it's all just pretend. A kid knows better than that than the adult does in this case, and that's very concerning. There is very much a big difference between playing pretend and reality, and a lot of kids, I feel like, would naturally know the difference between that, or at least can be told that. So I don't know, it's just getting at the point where they're trying to police the kids over, what they're allowed to play pretend as, when that has never been an issue even when I've been in school. If you want to use one or two arguments to make a claim versus the hundreds of thousands of other arguments against it, then sure, go for that. But even then, in the cases here, there has been zero actual evidence of furries being disruptive in classrooms, of getting in the way of education. Because at the end of the day, the disruptions that happen in classrooms are just student disruptions having nothing to do with furries. And even then, that's up to the parents and the family and whoever else involved to, address that accordingly. And what's funny too is the cat litter is used specifically in the instances of school shootings. When you're in lockdown, you're locked in the classroom, if kids need to use like the bathroom or defecate, you'll usually just get the litter out as a substitute so they don't have to leave and use the bathroom because they can't because there's a school shooting. We'll have to see what this ends up affecting at the end of the day, but the fact that this is even remotely has to do with furries is just so humorous. It's so stupid, like I could laugh and cry at the same time as to how non-serious all this is for something that is actually a legislative matter. I don't know, come to your own conclusions that you want to at the end of the day with this. I'm tired and I'm gonna go and lay down. So on that note, thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed this, be sure to let me know in the comments, and if you want me to talk about anything further. I'd love to hear any suggestions you have. Don't know how much political-driven stuff I'll be talking about. Granted, I don't really like talking about political stuff, but here we are, this is it. Let me know your thoughts on this in the comments below. I'd love to hear if there's anything that I potentially missed. I'll try and either pin or add some little edits here and there in the comments if I missed anything important worth mentioning with regards to this subject. And if you guys want as well, if you're not really up to date on the whole litter box hoax thing, even though I did abbreviate it, I'd love to maybe do a full video breaking it down from like start to, I guess, where it is currently, going over all the examples and debunking and whatnot, because all of it is just kind of an hearsay and he said, she said on like news articles at this point. So if you want me to do an actual video breaking that down instead of like a stream highlight thing, please let me know in the comments. Either way, that's about gonna do it for me. Have a wonderful night, take care, life stay jacket, treat people like people, and that's about it. See you later, guys.